A few years ago, Admiral Hansen watched a freshman cadet pass 4 upperclassmen on the last hill of a 40-kilometer run at Danula 2. Guinan's relationship with Picard is beyond friendship, beyond family, and the Klingon Empire will never yield. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation. Here it is. Season 4, Episode 1, The Best of Both Worlds, Part 2, written again by Michael Piller, directed again by Cliff Bole. This was September 22nd, 1990. Where were you? We've got a very special guest again. It's Commander Shelby to you, everybody. Elizabeth Dennehy, thank you so much for coming back. Really appreciate it.
Admiral Shelby.
True. In Star Trek Picard, everybody. Admiral. How are you?
Yes, let's go back in time. Lieutenant Commander Shelby. Hi, how are you?
Awesome.
Oh, great. Good to see you again. Thank you for joining us again.
Anytime.
Here's my first question, Elizabeth, and I've been dying to ask you this for only like 30 years. For the fans, in 1990, there was a 3-month break where we had to just sit there and wait and bite our fingernails and be like, I am not leaving the house when that next episode comes up, because otherwise I miss it. You miss the whole thing. That's what it was like from the fans' point of view. It was like frustration, but excitement. What was that 3 months like for you? Did you see any of the reaction? Were you aware? Was it just business as usual?
Oh, no, people were losing their minds, but we were too. Remember, we didn't have part 2. I went home to New York for the summer to see friends and stuff, and everywhere I went, people were asking me, and I was like, dude, I don't have the script. We didn't have the script until right before we started shooting. I had no idea what was going to happen. So we were also on tenterhooks. We had no idea how they were going to wrap the story up, where it was going to go, what was going to happen. We had no idea. So the other thing about those 3 months was I couldn't eat anything.
Oh.
It was a direct pickup. And have you ever worn a spandex jumpsuit onesie?
Cirroc?
Yes, I have, and it is not flattering. Yeah.
No, if I had a grape, it was going to show. I mean, I remember starving myself those 3 months. It was, just kind of a cruel thing to do to an actor, to say, go have fun, go be with your family. It's summer holiday, but you can't eat anything, and you certainly can't drink anything. So, yeah, no, that I remember that about that. It was just like a long 3 months.
Wow.
Now, was there potential for this character to be like added into the cast for that next season? Was there that option kind of up in the air about it? Or was it?
There was. It was never discussed with me. I have no idea. Nobody ever mentioned that to me. I mean, I think on the set, maybe they were talking, but, it wasn't about decision making, but just random conversations that if Patrick Stewart decided he didn't want to stay, that Riker would, or Riker didn't want to stay, that there was potential for me to become the first. I guess it was all being talked about. I heard some rumor. I can't even remember. Remember, this is 30 years ago, and I'm a very old lady. I remember hearing somewhere that maybe it was negotiation, part of getting them to resign. I have no idea, though. Nobody talked about it with me. I wasn't in the room where it happens. I was just
I could totally see this character being somebody that they would say, oh, let's just go ahead and make this a regular on the show. It's not outside of the parameters for me to see that happen.
I would have loved that. I would have loved to have come on. I still would. But nobody talked about it with me, and you saw part 2, so I kind of, the way my character was wrapped up rather quickly. everybody signed back on. Everybody was happy to come back to their jobs, whatever those rumors were, so yeah. But
that's really interesting. It's an oh, sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was going to say, other than conjecture, other than wondering, no, I never heard anything.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting. I would have loved to have heard whatever those rumors were, just to kind of follow those trains of thought. But it is true that this is how a lot of recurring characters, or even regular characters, get introduced mid-season. Mid-series. They get introduced as like, difficult. There's friction, or they don't get along with somebody, or they have their own way, and then the second episode they kind of start to come together, and then they coalesce, and it's a valued member of the crew or something like that. So yeah, I could totally see how this could have been an introductory set of episodes for a longer thing, but no go. Could you tell us? Did you when you heard these rumors? Did you hear anything at all about details, or just like people saying, "Well, you never know"?
No, it was just on the set. Remember, these people knew each other for years and years and years. The cast I'm talking about, and the writers and the directors, so they all had a shorthand with each other. I swan in, to do 8 days in June and 8 days in September, and just a hired hand. Nobody clued me in terms of anything. It was just conjecture. But.
Do you recall in the auditioning process reading opposite Jonathan Frakes at any point?
No, the first time I met him was in the makeup trailer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about Cliff Bole? Was he involved in that early casting segment?
He must have been. I know that it was a big table. A lot of people were there. So, I mean, I was 28. I'm 63 now. It was like, I remember there being a lot of people in the room. But I wish I could remember if they gave me notes, if I did it more than once. I honestly, I couldn't tell you, but I know I had a call back. And I wish I knew, like Cliff and I did, what do you call it? When the DVD, the Blu-ray came out, we did the commentary. And I can't even tell you, I don't think it came up. Like, what about my audition was where they said I was the one. And I maybe I was too afraid to ask, they had somebody else. And then at the last second, they dropped out and we thought you would do, you never know. You never know these things. I comfort myself, you're an actor. We have no control over how we're perceived, only how we present ourselves. And if you ruminate and if you think about, like when I booked Horizon, the Kevin Costner movie, I'm so cynical and so jaded and been kicking around for so long. My first thought was like, oh, who asked for too much money? Because it's impossible for me to believe that I was the first choice. I'm just too cynical and jaded to believe that. So I was like, oh, I wonder who asked for too much money.
So you're just I must have been the second choice. We'll see. Sorry, Cirroc.
Yeah, no, I think you gave first choice performances in this episode. Yeah. Really, like a nice, like, standing up to Riker and actually making Riker step up and become a leader in his own way by challenging him in the ways that you did, kind of holding him accountable. That was something that we don't see that much, actually, at all. No one really holds Riker accountable to me, except for Picard to some degree. But even Picard's like, "Go ahead, fella, you could go in that." A
little rascal.
He's like, "Go ahead, you little rascal, go ahead. I know what you want to do. Go ahead. I'll look the other way." But you're like, "No, I'm ambitious. I want this spot. I'm gonna hold you accountable." And I felt like for the first time there was an intellectual match for Riker that was not sexualized, because we keep seeing the female guest stars come on and become instantly sexualized by Riker's character, and it kind of takes away their identity and reduces it to something that's too playful. And in this case, I didn't sense that. I did sense the chemistry though, which is ironic.
Good.
But I did not sense the same way that he kind of fawns over women and tries to get in bed with them. That wasn't there. You kind of cut that off with the directness and with the combativeness, which I love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad that you saw the chemistry. We
Mm-hmm.
like I said, we had to plant the seeds for every possible eventuality. And, I think respect for a woman's intelligence and fearlessness, it's refreshing to see that as opposed to seeing her as an object, especially 30 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that leads me in.
That's what I loved about it.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you about, Elizabeth, is that you did mention that last time you were here that you and Jonathan didn't know. Is the next episode going to be us, romantically involved in some way, or are we going to be at each other's throats? How is this going to end? We don't know. But then 3 months later, you finally saw the script. Do you remember how you felt when you read it? You saw there was no romance. You saw that you were coming together. Do you remember being a little disappointed that there are things missing? Do you remember thinking that you thought, okay, this is good enough? Or what did you think?
Well, I was sad that my story was abruptly just kind of like put out to sea, put out to pasture. Disappointed in that. But I also found out, I think you might have told me this, that Michael Piller wrote the first episode and then had to write the second one. And I don't know if it was being used as a negotiating tool. I have no idea. I really don't. I don't know if anybody knows. I mean, a lot of the people are no longer with us, Michael and Cliff, but that they just wrapped it up pretty quickly. I thought it was a really great episode in terms of going on the Borg ship and getting Patrick back and all of that, and the relationship between Locutus and everybody on the ship was really cool. But for me, it was like, okay, you did your job, now you can go. So I had to wait 30 years for
to get your promotion and get your shot. I actually felt like even if it was going to be a goodbye episode to you, I don't think they honored your contribution in these last two episodes enough in the goodbye scene. If that makes any sense. I felt like it should have been more of an offer to, hey, would you like an invitation to stay on board the Enterprise that you reject because it's limiting to your ambitions as a officer. I felt like that would have been the appropriate way to say goodbye to this character, where Riker, everything's back to normal. Picard's back on the ship. Everybody gets their ranking back assigned to them, and you are offered, a lieutenant commander position where you were just given this number one commission, and you want the taste of that again. You want to be a captain, so you're going to decline the offer extended to you to stay aboard the Enterprise and pursue those kinds of dreams. That to me would have been a better way to say goodbye to Commander Shelby.
I agree. But remember, you're watching it 30 years after it was being made. Like, what did the fans think when they saw it live? I don't know if they agree with you, because I think it was the first time they had a cliffhanger, the first time anybody questioned Riker's authority, the first time, I mean, it was so many firsts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe the fans were, I mean, I'm telling you, I went to conventions and people hated Shelby, hated my guts, called me a bitch. There were some unsettling people yelling from across like not even coming up to my table. I hated you. So maybe at the time on the day, it was like, okay, we put our toes in the water of a cliffhanger. We really rocked Riker's boat. Now it's time to go back to our regularly scheduled program.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I feel like all of your best lines were in the first episode, right?
Yeah.
Such great juicy, memorable
except
lines.
amazing techno babble again, once again
Yes.
by you in this episode, with working with LaForge in the engineering room, running through all of that techno babble. I was like, you're so good at it. We always compliment Jordy for how good he is at it, for LeVar Burton for how good he is at reciting the techno babble, but you right on par with it, coming back and forth. Seriously, I was admiring it. I wrote it down. Excellent techno babble, because to me that's the most difficult part of the scripts.
Is it part 2 where I say separate the saucer section, assign the skeleton? See, I can't even do it. Separate the saucer section, assign a skeleton crew to create a diversion. Was that part 2? I can't remember.
That was the end of part 1, I believe. It all kind of bleeds. But there was another chunk, and I didn't write one word of it because I was like, I can't. Come on. Yes. I couldn't even write it. Yes, there was another chunk in this episode that you were saying that I know what part you're talking about, Cirroc. But clearly that one didn't give you as much problems as separate the saucer section, right?
No, there was a line. I thought they weren't interested in our human form, only our technology. But that wasn't hard. I'm trying to think. I mean, I wish I could remember. It's been so long since I watched it. But projections suggesting a Borg ship like this one could continue to function effectively, even if 78% of it were rendered inoperable. That destroyed my brain. That was the very first scene I shot, and I thought I was going to get fired. And then separate the. I can't remember another part.
That's so crazy.
Well, let me ask you this, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And you may have been asked this question before, because Star Trek fans love to hear this kind of stuff. But the Next Generation crew is known for their shenanigans, for their goofiness. What was the sense what did you say? You worked 8 days for the first one, probably another 8 days for the second one. Were they professional? Were they goofy? Did you have a rapport? Did you have a favorite person on set?
Something that's important to remember is the last episode of a season, everybody is tired. They were tired and they were done and they were ready for a break. And then the first episode, everybody's so happy to see each other again. They've had a restful summer, not eating anything, but still happy. It's a very, very different vibe. I know you know what I'm talking about. Like after 22 episodes, wearing those costumes, wearing the makeup. I mean, poor Michael Dorn. Oh my God. They were really tired, but I wish I could remember some funny things specifically. If I knew that I was going to be talking about it 30 years ago, I would have kept a journal of funny things. I had no idea. What I do remember is that Patrick is a little tricky trickster, and Patrick was in a very teasing way trying to fix me and Brent up. He thought me and Brent should go on holiday together. And he was always saying, Brent, why did you go and sit down next to Elizabeth? And consequently, Brent never spoke to me. I think very, very shy, and it was very humiliating, very embarrassing. So, and so look at how my life could have been different. I could have been Mrs. Brent Spiner. But he was trying to set us up. I remember that. It was really hard to keep a straight face with them, especially when the ship gets hit. When I remember the first time, and they were like, "So is this a 4? Is it a 7? Is it an 11? What is it?" And I'm like, "What are you guys talking about?" And Jonathan said, "Well, if it's just like somebody sideswipes us, it's like this. If it's a 7, we're holding on. And if it's a 9, we're flung. And I said, you are kidding me. I thought they were joking. I couldn't believe that was the way they did it. And it was like being with little kids doing, playing Space Alien, like playing make-believe. I couldn't believe that was, you have all this technology of cameras flying through the air, and that's how you do a hit. So
it sounds like it's got to be embarrassing on the day of, like, you're like, are we really? Okay, I'll do it if you do it, I guess.
It's literally little kids playing make-believe. It's little kids playing make-believe, and I couldn't keep a straight face. I was like, I better not have my face facing the camera because I'm going to crack up. It was so funny. It was really, really funny. Those are the two things. Brent, him trying to fix me But I spent a lot more time with Jonathan than anybody else. So of course I bonded with him. We were always in his trailer talking about the scenes. Where could we plant seeds of, is she good or is she hero? Is she villain? All those little side eye looks, um, the little, I think there's a look. Oh, pardon me. I was told that you were interested in the job. All those little slides. It was all deliberate. They were all planted to keep you guessing and in case to cover every eventuality.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time talking to him about it.
That's crazy when they leave it up in the air on the cliffhanger like that, and you don't know which way it's going to go, if they're bringing you back or not. It's so much uncertainty at that point. And then I'm sure the fans, like you said, asking you during the summertime, like, what's going to happen? What's going on? And the anticipation building up for that as well. I have a question, though, you alluded to a little bit about bringing back, being brought back as Admiral Shelby, in Picard. And we did watch Picard, and I wanted to ask about just what was that phone call like? You think you're done all these years later, and
so I did. I do a lot of these interviews, so please forgive me if I'm repeating myself. I can't remember if I'm keeping the story straight, but this crazy thing happened. Did we talk about Picard at all? I don't think we did.
No.
30 years goes by. I get fan mail. On Cameo, and in November of 21, when things were still stay at home, wear masks. You can't go anywhere there without getting tested, and you've got to take email a photo of your negative test. I mean, really, really still clamped down. I got asked to do a Star Trek convention in London. I love London. I'll go there anytime, especially if you fly me first class. So my husband and I went to London, met John Billingsley. He was on the plane, and we rode 2 hours in the car, fully masked, to the hotel. And at the convention, every single day, we had to be tested. At the convention, wear masks, like super duper protocols in place. And I cannot pronounce her name. The Borg Queen, Alice Kriege. Kriege. Okay. She was there. And we had a great time. She had worked with my father. My father and she had done a TV movie where he had to rape her. And she was like, he was such a gentleman about it, which is something you want to hear about your dad, that he was a gentleman about playing a rapist. We got along great. She was really lovely. And I said, I don't know a lot about Star Trek because I only watched the episodes I was in. And I'm sorry, but that's true. And I said, but I think fans would lose their mind if I tweeted a selfie of Shelby and the Borg Queen. So I did. And I also am really not fluent I'm so techno Amish, and I'm not fluent in Twitter. But for me to get like 2,000 reshares and 2,000 likes, it was big. And I came home on a Monday. It was November 21. Came home on a Monday. The next day, my agent called and said, Picard is asking about your availability.
Like, the next day?
That's a powerful tweet.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I couldn't, after 30 years. So when I got on Picard, I asked Jonathan about it, and he said, I don't know what you're talking about. So I think it was a total coincidence. But isn't that so weird?
Yeah.
Wow.
It sounds like they were just like in a writer's room meeting, and somebody's just like, I don't know. And they're like, hey, what about Elizabeth Dennehy?
I looked at my phone and I'm like, oh, that was powerful. Yeah. But I asked Jonathan about it, and he was like, no, I don't think. No, he said, Terry had you on a short list for a long time about dream people to bring back. And I was like, so that was just such a bizarre coincidence. So November 21, asked about my availability, and I shot in February of 22, and then it didn't air until April of 23. And I have, believe it or not, really, really good friends who are Star Trek fanatics and friends of mine. I don't know if you guys know Austin Tichenor. He runs the Reduced Shakespeare Company and the Reduced Shakespeare Company podcast. And he is such a star. And I remember we were in LA together, and it was like, I shot in February, and in May, he was out here because his daughter was graduating from college. He lives in Chicago, and he's like, I can't believe they never brought, and I was like, in my brain, because I was not going to ruin the surprise for anybody, but I had to keep
14 months.
From November of 2021 all the way till April of 23. Had to keep mum about that.
Was the delay because of COVID? Is that what took so long?
No,
or?
They shot 2 and 3 together at the same time. They shot season 2 and season 3 at the same time. They shot our scenes, I had to wait for season 2 to air, finish shooting season 2, season 3 to finish shooting, and then season 2 to air, and then the summer break. It was ages. It was a really long time. Actually, it was so much time that I actually forgot about it. At the beginning, I was like dying to tell people, but then I actually forgot all about it. So much time went by, but it was, when I got the phone call, I was like, oh my God, I was really, really, really happy and, delighted to be back. But then again, I read the script and I was like, lack of respect. Like they're like slanging me. They're talking all kinds of shit about me. I'm on the screen doing my speech and they're making wisecracks. And I'm like, I think I saved all your asses. Like a little bit of respect.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Put some respect on your name. Well, was Jonathan Frakes directing that episode, the Picard?
No, Terry directed it, and but Jonathan was there.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan was there. And I think I just did what I was told with the directing, and that the ambiguity about if I actually have been killed or not. I mean, that all happened in the editing, so that's remains to be seen.
Wow, that is so cool.
I was really, really happy to be brought back, and I was ecstatic because I got to fix a couple of things that always bugged me. Number one, the costumes now are not the super tight spandex jumpsuit that gives you a permanent wedgie, and you can eat it's 2 pieces. Like, hold on a second. A lot of noise. Can you hear that? Anyway, it's trucks going by. No. The outfits, the costumes, I went in for numerous fittings. So flattering, so comfortable. I was so happy that they got rid of the jumpsuits. They were so uncomfortable. And I feel bad complaining about that because compared to the Borg, who are encased in really smelly rubber and couldn't pee or go to the bathroom, I can't complain about the jumpsuits, but that made me very happy. But also, I detested my hairstyle on both worlds, detested my hair. And so the first thing I did when they brought me in for costume fitting was, please, dear God, give me an attractive, sleek, chic, cool, badass hairstyle. I got to get rid of that Jane from F Troop old lady hair. So they fixed. So I got to fix that, and I was really, really happy about that.
Well, we were also
the original hairstyle. Was that your idea? I mean, that was their idea. Then these episodes, Best of Both Worlds, that was their.
I hate to say this, but the woman who was doing the hair, I don't know what her name was. She was a very old lady. It was a very old-fashioned hairstyle. I have problematic hair. I have curly hair, naturally curly hair, and I think in like if I'm playing a lawyer or somebody who's supposed to be really sleek, they'll straighten it and put it up, and they did not know what to do with my hair. And so it was put up in some kind of chignon, but I had these like tendrils coming down here. It was like 1950s prom or 1950s bridesmaid. It was just, I didn't know what to do with it. And then for part 2, that woman was gone, and it was a new, cool, hip woman who had curly hair. She obviously knew how to style curly hair, but she said, It's a direct pickup. I'm sorry. I have to match it. We have to do exactly the same thing. So it was delightful to go back onto Picard and have somebody who just like I wanted something really, sharp and cool and badass. And that made me very happy.
Oh, what a bummer to come back and, a new oh no, it's direct. We gotta, there's nothing.
Yeah.
It's not even like the next day. It's like it picks up right where it left off. So there's nothing you can do.
There's nothing I could do. The other thing I think was going on was Jonathan is so much taller than me. Yeah. And I think they had this idea of getting my hair up higher. So it's like, it was a helmet and it was sprayed to death. I was 28 and it was just like such an old-fashioned old lady kind of hairstyle. Ugh, I hated it so much.
But Shelby rocked it. Look, Elizabeth, we're just about out of time. But this has been so cool. We are unbelievably grateful that you took the time to hang out with us twice. And that's almost as many times as you've been on Star Trek so far. But I really hope, and I think all the fans really hope, that you'll get a call again sometime soon, because we love Shelby.
Yeah.
Actually, Elizabeth Shelby is the character's name. It's weird. I never made that connection.
No. Shelby never had a first name in Best of Both Worlds. And then I get the Picard script and I'm Elizabeth Shelby. And I was like, well, it's good. It's a good name.
Yeah.
It's a good name as any other. So yeah, no, they never gave me a first name in the first show.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. So they added that later. That's a little inside scoop.
Mm-hmm. Well, but seriously, Elizabeth, thank you so much. It's been a great pleasure. We really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And everybody at home, stick around. We got a lot more of this. We'll be covering it a lot more. We'll be right back on The Seventh Rule. How cool is this? Well, hi there, everybody. Welcome back to The Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello.
Here are the trivioids of the week. Go a little something like this. Starfleet has mobilized a fleet of 40 starships at Wolf 359. A few years ago, Admiral Hansen watched a freshman cadet pass 4 upperclassmen in the last hill of a 40-kilometer run at Denula 2. I always want to call it Denobula. That's shout out to John Billingsley. That's his race. Riker gets a field promotion to captain. The Borg have neither honor nor courage. Guinan's relationship with Picard is beyond friendship, beyond family. Chief O'Brien saves Picard, Worf, and Data's lives. Everybody remember that. That's important. The Klingon Empire will never yield. And the Mars defense perimeter was pretty weak, actually. All right. Right? They're like, it was like three
Scud
tiny
missiles.
little ships, and they came out and they just blasted them. They're like, the Mars defense perimeter has been defeated. I'm like, well, that's
seriously. They were like smaller than runabouts. I don't know what were those.
That's their defense perimeter. That's what we got protecting us in the future. Everybody,
those
little ships.
Those damn Martians, bro. Got to step up their defense systems up.
Yeah, that was
terrible. Good thing there's not more than this one Borg ship, because if there was more, then we would just have Starfleet would be decimated.
Yeah, that was one ship, and we'll see in the future if they ever come back with more ships. I don't know, it could happen. But did you notice? I like that Worf had a couple really good lines. Like one is when he said, "The Borg are without honor nor courage." No, the Borg have neither honor nor courage. And then when the Borg, or was it Locutus said it? Oh yeah, Locutus said it to him. He says, "Klingon, we will destroy you, or, you will be assimilated with the others." Worf gets all like huffy. He's like, "The Klingon Empire will never yield." Where was that when he was saying, "I'm going to wipe out the Federation"? He's like, "Oh, well, maybe," but he got all defensive about the Klingons.
I like also when Worf said, "I like my species the way it is." Okay, we get you, we get it. Yeah, he did have some moments in this episode. Also, like the little moments that Riker had with Shelby. There was one moment that I thought was, I don't know, jumped out at me as not being the best writing for showing Riker's leadership. I always try to say, when we're watching these episodes, I say they wrote this episode in a way that made Picard look like a great leader, or
Totally.
so it gave him some very good redemptive qualities. Those moments when he reaches out to people, or he just shows good leadership in some moments, and I always like to highlight those. But I think the opposite is also true too when you kind of show lack of leadership. And this is the moment that I felt could have been rewritten or done better. Riker goes by and he tells he tells Worf, I need you to stay where you are. I really want you to be my number one, but I need you to stay where you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was he just trying to embarrass them?
Yeah, right. And then he tells it to Data, right? So he one by one rejects them, and then has this meeting. I guess it looked like a meeting where he says, well, as you know, I'm looking for a number one, and I am reluctantly forced to conclude Commander Shelby is an ideal choice at this time for first officer.
Right. Bad leadership all around.
Right? First of all, you're saying reluctantly forced. That is not the proper verbiage for trying to instill confidence in the crew and them in following her orders. I'm reluctantly forced. Like, nobody's forcing you, bro. You're making this decision on your own as the captain, and it's the right decision to make. It's not reluctantly forced. I hate this woman. I have to do this. Like, come on, bro. It wasn't necessary to say I'm reluctantly forced to have to pick Shelby to be the number one only at this time because of the exact circumstances and her knowledge about the Borg. But other than that, guys, I would totally not pick her. That's not
well, and right. And I completely agree. I thought the same thing when I watched this. And on top of that, it also doesn't instill confidence within her. Like, he's supposed to come up to her and say, Commander Shelby, you have shown yourself to be a valuable asset to this ship. You've been an incredible help in these matters or this mission or whatever. And I am promoting you to first officer as you are the best person for the job. Okay? That's the way you do it. And then she's like, fuck yeah, you're right. And then everybody appreciates her. Everything's great. Personal feelings aside, you could hate her, but like, this is for the betterment of the ship. And the betterment of the ship, if you care about the betterment of everybody on that ship, you want them to have confidence in her. You want her to have confidence in her own decisions. You want them to have confidence in him as a leader, because that's not good leadership, kind of dressing everybody down and being like, oh boy, to be honest, life sucks. Data, you're cool, I guess. Worf, I don't know. Shelby, geez, I guess I'm stuck with you. I don't know, guys. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't know. Convince me.
Yeah. No confidence building. She proved herself, and all you have to do is say, listen, since you've gotten here, you've made some right calculations about the Borg and their capabilities. She did the whole frequency of the ship and the resonance and the whole other stuff, and she was coming up with ideas. You remember even some that didn't work, but she was coming up with ideas that were, showed her quick thinking. And I think he should have said something that was more complimentary to her. The way he delivered that was totally not a confidence booster. She's the number one. So like, everybody has to follow her orders now. And that's not how you get everybody in line. You make everybody say, hey, look, guys, she earned it. She's come here, and ever since she showed up on this ship, she's earned her spot on it, and she's proven herself worthy. And I have the utmost confidence and faith that she'll execute her duties with, to the utmost best of her ability. So I think that's the way you introduce somebody, and that's the way you give them the keys to the franchise. You don't hire the coach of the Lakers and say, well, we searched for everybody and I'm reluctantly forced to
Red
hire.
Auerbach's dead.
I mean, and Pat Riley's not coming back, so
Yeah,
I guess
Jackson won't
we'll
return our calls.
yeah. So we're reluctantly forced to say JJ Redick will be the coach. Like
Brian
that's not.
Shaw, welcome back.
Yeah, that's not how you do it because nobody wants to follow that person if they're getting an introduction like that. They're gonna that you undermine their authority right from the beginning.
Yeah. And
So
not to beat a
poorly
dead
written in my
horse. Yeah, agreed.
yeah
Not to beat a dead horse, but that could have been done, and not to play amateur writer, that could be done without any of that because guess what? The audience knows already he's reluctant to do it. We already know he does. Now, of course, this was the age of regular television where maybe they didn't see the first episode. Maybe they're watching Star Trek for the first time. So you kind of have to over explain things a bit because there's no guarantee they've actually seen the previous episode. Fine, I get that. But it could have also, most of the audience already knew that he's reluctant. And it could have also just shown in a look, in an action, action line. Riker reluctantly walks up to Shelby. Boom, here's the line. We could read it, right? Show, don't tell. And then he says the great things, but we know what he's thinking and what he's saying are two different things. Anyway, that's of course 2024 hindsight on 1990. But anyway, so also great moments by Guinan. Great moments by,
yes
I was glad to see O'Brien. O'Brien saved the day, everybody. Let's not forget, he saved 3 lives. So, there are a lot of good things. Oh, here was one good moment that I don't remember if I caught back in the day. They named a bunch of ships that had been blown up. One was the Melbourne, which is where Riker was going to be moved into captaincy. So there was that extra weight, that moment where he's like, whoa, that was going to be me.
Yeah, I was wondering which one of those ships Jennifer Sisko was on and Benjamin Sisko. I was wondering which one of those they were on. I don't know if that was ever.
I
was
think
it the Saratoga?
know. Right now, there's some people screaming at their screens. I'll look it up. Because I do remember that I'm pretty sure they mentioned it.
Because that was going in my head. Obviously, I'm seeing this battle. And I'm wondering what's going on here.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just looking at. I'll find the Sisko thing a little later.
You're trying to find it? Okay,
yeah. I was taking a quick look. I was like, I bet you I could probably find it pretty quickly because, let's see. Okay, I'll find it in a second. Anyway,
yeah, it was the Saratoga. I was right.
Was it? Wow. Why would I even Google if I got Google right here with Cirroc? This guy knows everything about Star Trek now.
Yeah, I was right. Saratoga. That's my mom, man. I remember that. It was the Saratoga. They didn't mention the Saratoga though in this. They did show a whole fleet of ships kind of destroyed, but they didn't mention by name. They mentioned the Tolstoy, the Kyushu, and the Melbourne.
That's right. Spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, but I was waiting to hear the Saratoga because very great callback for Deep Space Nine to have basically be a spinoff of these 2 episodes.
Mm-hmm. So also, again, have to mention the great scoring. The music was unbelievable.
Yep.
I can't say enough about it. And I did have one other question was, the Borg stop. They go to sleep. Why do we need to send people over to verify? They stopped. They went to sleep. Why is he saying, hey, take an away team, go make sure that they're asleep? Well, we know they stopped. There's nothing. I don't know. Maybe I missed something. That was just a little confusing. But it adds to the drama, makes it more fun to watch.
Yeah, I think so. That kind of didn't bother me as that much, but it did. I was asking a little bit about why they're going there. I like the scene with Guinan and Riker. because she's like right away. She just walks into the office and says, "Hey, can I talk?" And he's like, "Well, actually," and she's like, "Yeah, I'm not asking you. I'm telling you, can I talk?" And then she goes into basically that whole scene about letting go of Picard and whatnot. And I thought it was a great scene because she's so sincere in her performance when she gives a performance. Like
Mm-hmm.
Whoopi Goldberg is an amazing
Yeah.
actor, and when she gets into that performance, her face is completely intense with emotions. You can see the distress. You can see her being empathetic with the situation. You can see this wisdom and this inner kind of strength that she emits when she talks. So all of that kind of stands in alignment with her character and what her character species is supposed to be. I feel like it resonates without even her talking. Part of it is also enhanced with the outfit, which was also very stunning in my opinion. This particular outfit she was wearing in this
Better.
episode, but in general, Whoopi Goldberg just has this grace on camera that is just it's just powerful, to watch.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Great stuff there, especially when she comes in. She's like, "Hey, you got a minute?" Riker's like, "Actually, guy and I," and she just barges in and starts talking. Love it.
Yeah,
She's like, "Hey, I'm not a lieutenant here. I do what I want. I'm kind of just do my thing."
yeah.
Speaking of which, though, it's time for the home run of today's episode. Kind of a toughie today. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah, kind of tough. The home run of the day. Um, Jeez, this is a toughie. I'm just gonna say Jonathan Frakes.
Hmm.
Jonathan Frakes gets the home run for me. He hit all the notes that I think I needed to see. Um, he didn't double down on any kind of being a jerk. I felt like he actually was navigating the situation pretty well. Um, it, minus what my criticism of the line, about instilling confidence in his new number one. But other than that, I felt like he, you know, had a lot of good scene. The scene with him and Elizabeth Dennehy, I really liked what he says. We don't have to like each other to work well together. That kind of resonated with me. I like that delivery on that line. Um, and some other moments that I felt as well. I thought that he did a great job. So I'm going to give it to. I rarely get a chance to compliment Jonathan Frakes for his wonderful acting, and I felt like this is the time to do it.
Yeah, good stuff. I'm gonna actually say Patrick Stewart because he didn't have a ton in this one, but to be honest, the most memorable scene in this episode for me that I've always remembered as a kid is this one right behind me, where he reaches out and he grabs Data's arm. It just, it's one of those things that just kind of sticks with you forever. Just like in the first one, Mr. Worf, fire, right? Same thing, like very, very memorable. I remember this group, and it's cool. Great use of O'Brien. It was cool that he got to be part of this scene. That's not he's
Yeah,
always relegated to the transporter pad, transporter room.
yeah,
But they're like, hey, these engineers are busy fighting the Borg. We need this one here. Really cool. So that was really good. But yeah, I think my home run goes to Picard or Patrick Stewart because he didn't overact, he didn't underact. He had these great moments. That was good stuff.
yeah. And I want to throw in there, lastly, really quickly, just a little shout out also to Brent Spiner in that same scene that you're talking behind you
When his eyes
when
got big.
he's like, oh, uh, processing, and then he says fascinating, and he's whispering,
Mm-hmm.
and he shows emotion. The emotion is in the download of information that he's receiving and processing. He is enthralled by that. He's having an informational orgasm, and
So good.
and it was so good because it was written on his face when he's like, and then you see Troy kind of walk in like, "Hey, are you okay?" And he's like, "No, no, I'm trying to process it." Like, let me just soak this up. And I love that way Brent Spiner delivered that moment in that scene. It was excellent.
Totally agree. Loved it. It's one of the best Data moments ever. Here's some other Data points. It's our friends, Homer Frizzell, Dr. Anne-Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman, Tom, TJ Jackson, Bay out in Missouri, Titus Mahler, Dr. Muhammad Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Anil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Gu, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, My Live from Tokyo, The Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Justin Weir, Jake Barrett, Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manisfee, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, Tim Baum, Chris Sternett, Chuck A., Luther Haynes, and of course, Jason Okun and Greg K. Wickstrom, everybody. All right, stick around. We will be right back with the free-for-all. It's time for some fun on the Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule. It is time for the free-for-all with Malissa Longo.
Hi. I just read Faith's comment.
Oh, wow. What did we miss?
It's very nice. Thank you.
Aw. And, of course, Jason M. Okun is here. We've got Faith Howell hanging out in Wesley Crusher's seat. Carrie Schwent is hanging out with the Borg, I guess. My Live in Tokyo has got some punk rock stuff behind her. That's cool. Allison Leach Hyde has a cool Deep Space Nine shirt. And Chris McGee has his favorite Stembolt and Chill shirt. All right, everybody. This is where it gets tough. Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
Well, I will say I think I like this a little bit less than the first one. I think the first one is better than this one. So I'm going to say I think a 9 even, maybe 8.9.
Wow.
In that zone.
Because the first one was a 9.3, right? All right. Yeah. Does anybody have any guesses that doesn't already know?
I'd go a little lower, maybe 8.7.
I'll say a 9.2, just to be close.
All right. All bets are in. And the closest, without going over, is Chris McGee. It is a 9.2, spot on. Cirroc Lofton Award of the day.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I agree. I thought it should have been lower than 1 point lower than the other one, you know? Or 1 decimal point, I should say. All right. Do we have any non-appearance mentions? I didn't hear one.
Yes. Barkley.
Oh, yes. Barkley, yeah.
How did I miss Broccoli?
Shelby
That was
said
when
it.
they were
who said Barkley?
repairing and engineering.
Shelby
engineering. There is one
Amazing.
other that didn't make it on the screen, but we'll talk about that later.
Whoa!
Spoilers.
What a tease.
Teaser.
All right.
Barkley now. I missed it. What did they say about Barkley? Anything special or
something?
But he was working on something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he and Shelburne were apparently.
Right.
Something about his bank, I think.
Something about the 18.
Yeah. This guy gets it. All right. Did we have any some sorts of or some kinds of?
Not that I caught.
Me neither. All right. Let's get into the fun now. Malissa Longo, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you felt about this episode, how much you enjoyed it. What'd you think?
Really enjoyed this episode a lot. And personally, I think I enjoyed it better than the first one, contrary to other opinions. But yeah, I enjoyed it more because of a few reasons. And I'm trying to get my thoughts together while I have this fuzzball on me. But one, I think Riker really shines in this episode. In my opinion, I think that he really shines as the captain of the Enterprise. And and he makes wise and out of the box decisions that differ from Picard, which make it so believable. I like that he appointed Shelby as his first officer, because even though they don't get along as he stated, they work well together, and she is an asset to him and to the crew. So I really like that part of it. I also really, really empathized with Picard, particularly in the beginning when he's getting the implants put in him and the tear rolls down his face, and then after he's had them taken out. And I can only imagine, one, how terrifying that must be to have some outside force come in and take all control over of your faculties. I'm recording this today. I just learned that it's ALS Awareness Day. And so that it kind of reminded me of that, where he was very cognizant of what was going on around him, but he had no control over his physicality or anything, no control. And that's terrifying. And then also the post-traumatic stress he must have experienced after going through that ordeal. So tough. So I definitely empathized with Picard in that. And then I'll leave it with this. I also like that they used everyone in their roles believably, and they were all part of the solution to defeating the Borg. There was nobody whose job seemed out of place. So I really liked that about this episode as well, because everyone was part of the solution. And everyone had a part to play, and it wasn't one person saving the day.
Right, which is usually the best Star Trek way, is everybody kind of working together and solving their solutions. That's kind of the best part of Star Trek. Thank you very much, Malissa Longo and Mochi, the cat, doing a mind meld. What's up, Jason M. Okun? What did you think of this episode?
Well, I mean, it certainly is a good episode. I think the biggest fault of it is following part one, which is one of the best episodes, certainly, of the series. And it does tend to suffer a little bit by comparison in terms of sort of building up this sort of expectation, and its pacing and its structure is quite a bit different from part one. I think if you look at this as a 2-hour film, if you, for example, picked up a Blu-ray that combines the two into a single sort of 2-hour movie, if you will, or a TV movie, it stands up better rather than an episode on its own, just because of its story and its arc. I think, certainly the star of this episode is the score. It really is. Without that score, I think you would definitely have a different impression. And I looked at it very, very carefully this time around, and I'll talk more about this later as to why this is the way it is. I think to some degree we certainly get some sort of Picard moments here and get sort of into his humanity, if you will. And there are two scenes, one that was filmed and ended up being cut, and another, I think it was just cut from the script, probably for cost, and I'll talk about that later, that would have revealed a little bit more of his struggle as he is being Borgified. So that, I think, robbed the episode a little bit of its of that kind of impact. Overall, again, it's an enjoyable episode. It does have its slight drawbacks, again, mostly by being compared to part one, and I'll talk about that later.
Thank goodness for that. Great stuff, Jason M. Okun. All right, everybody. Faith Howell is here. I almost thought you were like leaving the screen for a second there. And we're so glad that she is. What do you think of this episode?
Okay, so my heart is pounding because I am about to out myself as like the worst Trekkie ever. I know that this is one of everybody's most famous episodes. It's always in the top 10 lists, and it is one of my absolute least favorites. I will say that with the caveat that, as we have said many times, the worst Deep Space Nine episode is still a Deep Space Nine episode. It is still beloved. The worst Trek episode is still a beloved episode. But the Borg as a whole petrified me as a child, and I have never coming back from that. So anytime the Borg come in, it takes off 10 points for me. So the only redeeming quality for this episode is that it did figure prominently in the launch of the best Trek ever. Yes. And so I love it, and I will not skip it on a marathon simply because I get to look for the Saratoga. I get to imagine that, we've got some Siskos in there somewhere. But as far as the Borg and the things that our characters are going through, I find the whole arc with Picard heartbreaking. And sorry, Peppa Pig's getting louder and louder over here. Give me that.
Oh, it's the lower decks version of the bridge.
Yes. My kids are cutting up, so I'm going to stop it there, and I'll pick back up for things left unsaid.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Faith. Yes, there was, we know for sure there was at least one Sisko still there when they arrived. Too soon? Anyway. Carrie Cirroc. Carrie Schwent is here. What's up? What'd you think of this episode?
Absolutely fantastic episode. It's such a great companion to the part one, and it's still got its tension, although a lot more subtly tense than the first half. Slow boiling tension. And of course, the Mr. Worf fire bit when they started back up the episode wasn't going to work because they assimilated Picard. He knew all about that plan. Of course, it wasn't going to work. So you had the wah 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 moment, and then you remembered, oh yeah, that's why it didn't work. Duh. But then you get the full body tingles moment when Lokitas calls Riker number one, and you're like, oh crap, there is still a tiny bit of Picard still sort of peeking out in there. And I liked what Melissa said about everybody having a job. And O'Brien, as it turns out, got to have a little bit more of a job than was originally planned because poor LeVar had to have surgery, so he couldn't be there for most of it. And I thought his stunt double or stand-in or whatever in that one scene did a great job because from what little you could see on the side of his face, it did look like LeVar was sitting there. So whoever they got for his stand-in did a fantastic job. And my personal headcanon, I think, because we knew the Klingons were coming to help, I think the reason we didn't see any Klingon ships is they all went ramming speed and all rammed themselves into the Borg cube trying to destroy it. And that's why you don't see any Klingon rubble. Every time I particularly love Guinan in the episode. I think her scene with Riker is just fantastic. Is she harsh? Yes, but did Riker need to hear it? Absolutely. And I feel like in scenes like that, every time I see it, I wish we could get like a short, 6 or 7 episode, limited series about her, about her people, and maybe the last who played the younger version of Guinan in I think it was season 2 of Picard could play her in that, make believe in my head limited series, because I thought she did a great job playing the other version of Guinan. I've got a couple little things that I'll say for things left unsaid. So I'll finish up with my limerick for the episode. And thinking about it, we've seen Into the Mind of Lokitas for one limerick. We've seen Into the Mind of Shelby. So I decided that it was Riker's turn. And once I decided that, it just came flooding right out. So I will end with this. With Jean-Luc gone, I must captain the ship. I will not go on some big power trip. We shall rescue our friend. His torture must end. Time to free him from the Borg's evil grip. Never forget, Wolf 359 now.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. Carrie Schwent hanging out with the Borg. She's saying never forget, but she's hanging out with them still. I don't know. All right, Mai is live in Tokyo with some cool punk rock stuff to tell us. What do you think of this episode?
Right? Well, there were three things about this episode. And, because of that, I'm torn as to who to give the home run of the day to be honest. I thought that Elizabeth Dennehy just absolutely knocked it out of the park yet again, as she did in the first part. Her facial expressions, from that small smile that she put out at the thought of going up against the Borg, and then her humility and her freshness. I loved her in this episode. I think she was really good. Second, Guinan, what Carrie was just talking about, Guinan advising Riker. When she talks about the only way to beat and save him was to let him go, I thought that was interesting. It was, anybody with a kid who's gone to college and who's really enjoyed having that kid at home, and then they go away and you're torn. Transitioning from a dependent young adult to an independent adult means you have to stop helicoptering as a parent. And in order for your relationship to change, to be two adults rather than an adult and a dependent, it's super hard because you care. She wasn't saying that you have to save the parallel is the it's not an exact parallel, but she was saying that you can't fly on the wings of your parents anymore; you'll die, and you have to fly on your own wings. So I thought it was a different perspective, but the same principle. It really struck home because when my kids went off to school, I felt that very strongly. The third thing was when I was 10 years old in Berkeley, California, where I grew up, a young woman named Patty Hearst, this person here in the picture up above my left shoulder, heiress to the Hearst fortune, was kidnapped by the SLA, a group of anti-government folks. Our parents got us indoors as quickly as they could. We were all warned about gunfire in the streets, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, 2 months later, after she was kidnapped, she was indoctrinated by the SLA. She appeared again in public as a member of that group, carrying the machine gun, as you see here. About a year later, the FBI caught up with this group, got her free. She was sent to jail for a few years. Jimmy Carter commuted her sentence. Later, Bill Clinton gave her a full pardon. But as she was arrested and going into jail, she said to her lawyer to tell the people outside, "Tell everybody that I'm smiling, that I feel free and strong. I send my greetings and love to all the sisters and brothers out there." Kind of a Borgy speech, if you ask me. After her release, she was rehabilitated and is now back to just being a normal person. This episode, in many ways, reads exactly like the Patty Hearst kidnapping. Even the lyrics of a song by the Misfits, released in '85, called "She." It says, it's about her. "She walked out with empty arms, machine gun in her hand. She is good and she is bad. No one understands." Again, very much about Picard, I thought. So, given all the similarities, the press coverage it got, I'd be very surprised if the writers were not hugely influenced by the Patty Hearst kidnapping. So, as I said, three things. A big episode for a lot of the standard reasons, but I think an important episode for these various messages that relate to real life. I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up.
And that's all we can ask for. Thanks very much. Mai, live in Tokyo. All right, Allison Leach-Hyde is here. Allison, your thoughts on this episode?
It's a great episode. Is it as good as part 1? No, but just barely. Because I think Pillar had a lot of work to do to try and tie it up in 45 minutes. Because, how he left it on our cliffhanger was unwinnable. There was no way for our crew to come out on top, and then to fix it in 45 minutes. It is going to be a bit of a rush. We're not going to get as much character development as we would probably normally want in an episode, but I think he did a great job of the crew finding the small thing that would, will help them in this situation. So I really, really appreciated that. Even though Picard had gone through this horrible thing, he still was a bit of himself on the inside and went, this is the one small thing I can see, and let's put him to sleep. And that's what we need. We can use that. I also really loved that Locutus called Data primitive. And then for first contact, that is how the Borg went at the crew, was through Data. Because they learned in this episode that Data is the heart of this crew. And that's how I see it, at least. And my favorite scene is between Guinan and Riker because it is wonderful. And starting that scene off with Riker looking at Picard's chair, going, "What would you do?" I'm like, oh, that's right. You did not have a good father figure. Picard's your father figure, and he's not here to talk you through this. And I thought that was beautifully acted. Lighting, all of it was a great scene. And I also highly enjoyed that the ladies got to have they fixed things. Like they're like, no, this is how we're going to fix this. We can fix Picard. This is Picard talking to us. And so I really enjoyed that too. And I think that is really Pillar coming out going, I want all of our characters to have their moment in an episode. So highly appreciated that. And the music when Picard is looking out his ready room window at the end of the episode gets me every time. It is beautiful and sad and just like, oh, I am going through so much, but I can't show it. So really well done. Enjoy the episode.
Awesome. Allison Leachhide, thank you very much. All right, it's time for the Dark Lord, Chris McGee, to tell us things we may have missed. What do you think of this episode?
Well, as you could probably tell from the score that I gave it at the beginning of our free-for-all here, I think it's a fantastic conclusion to the cliffhanger from last season. I think the explanation, as Carrie had mentioned, for why the energy beam failed was good. I also think they did a really good job of making the audience believe, for a little while anyway, that Patrick Stewart might be about to be written off the show. And although I tend to agree with some others that the Borg ship's destruction was handled maybe a little bit too conveniently, it was still no less of a satisfying conclusion. And of course, as was mentioned, especially by Jason, the Ron Jones delivers with an excellent musical score for the episode. I thought it was a nice touch, having Shelby mention as they were going through that graveyard of ships that mentioned the Melbourne as one of them, knowing that it was the ship that Riker was offered in the previous episode. And as Allison mentioned, that final shot of Picard hesitating before drinking his tea and then looking out the window while the music cue switches to a more melancholy tone was absolutely brilliant. The title of that music cue, by the way, on the soundtrack, pretty much explains it. It's called Picard's Nightmare.
Ooh.
For the memorable quotes of the episode, there are so many, but the one that, strangely or not, stuck with me all this time is, of course, as has been mentioned by many others, during that conversation between Riker and Guinan. And it's a bit of a sad and, well, more depressing, I guess, quote, but it always stuck with me, and that is when Guinan says, "When a man is convinced he's going to die tomorrow, he'll probably find a way to make it happen."
Great stuff. I feel like I'm a little sadder all of a sudden. Good stuff. Thank you very much, Chris McGee. All right. Jake's final take. Cirroc, final thoughts on this episode?
Yeah. Every time I see that Borg hand, I want to ask, how do you properly use that Borg hand? Like, what is it? What do you do with it? Do you pick locks with it, or you open cans of soup? What is that thing exactly for? How do they handshake with each other? Then there's that famous song 867 Wolf 359. You guys know that. You guys know that song, right? Exactly.
Oh, yes, amazing.
You see, Eve.
Exactly.
Oh wait.
I wanted to bring up Wesley in this episode because Riker's like set a course for like we're gonna basically kamikaze ourselves into the Borg ship, and Wesley's like, what? Like, you just got the job and like this is the first thing you want to do? Like I kind of like that moment. I was thinking to myself, seriously, we got to come up with other options, bro. This can't be the self-destruct episode. That's not a good first showing as your captain. Yeah, I saw the Picard maneuver done by Riker now several times in this episode, it stood out to me a lot. Every time he got up, it was one of these pull downs. And I think there should be a running count on Picard maneuvers in Star Trek. I think that in itself is worthy of keeping tally of. So, and I know Captain Sisko has done it many times as well. It's just something about the way when you're getting up from a sitting position in those uniforms, you want to look presentable, but it gets into my brain because of the seriousness of the moment. It's like, oh, we have 5 seconds, the thing's about to die, and you're worried about your shirt not being properly, it's like, it's more of an acting thing than it is about, the seriousness of the moment. So that's what kind of gets to me about it. I like the line when Picard says, they say, how are you feeling? And he says, almost human. I thought that was a good delivery, good line. Well done to me. And then, lastly, I was going to comment on those Borg Band-Aids. Where do you buy one of those Band-Aids that Picard had on in the end of the episode? It's just exactly the shape of the Borg in outline. Borg Band-Aids. Where can you get them, and how can I cosplay?
Well, people will be able to cosplay that. If you say it, people will bring you some Borg Band-Aids cosplay.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. So that's my final take on it.
Jake's final take. Great stuff. All right. That's it for us, everybody. Whoa. We're in season 4. Can you believe it? They grow up so fast. Just feels like just last week. We had Denise Crosby saying, "What were they thinking?" And now here we are in the 4th season. Thank you very much to Chris, Allison, Mai, Carrie, Faith, Jason, Melissa, for myself, Cirroc, Mr. Aaron Eisenberg, Malissa Longo, Mochi the Cat. Thank you all very much for hanging out with us. We will see you next time. Until then, always remember the 7th rule.